Okay, we're on page 36, episode 12. We are right in the middle of the battle between Beowulf and Grendel. Again, on your characteristics and conventions chart, this would be a great example of the narrative open in media res, or in the middle. So, top of page 36. That mighty protector of men meant to hold the monster till its life leaped out, knowing the fiend was no use to anyone in Denmark. All of Beowulf's band had jumped from their beds, ancestral swords raised and ready, determined to protect their prince if they could. Their courage was great, but all wasted. They could hack at Grendel from every side, trying to open a path for his evil soul, but their points could not hurt him. The sharpest and hardest iron could not scratch at his skin, for that sin-stained demon had bewitched all men's weapons, laid spells that blunted every mortal man's blade. So the battle continues. Beowulf is holding tightly to Grendel, and Beowulf has been, in the last episode and in this episode, been described as either, of all the men on the earth, he was the strongest, or mighty protector of men, all of which are examples of establishments of the epic hero. The other Geats jump to their feet, they grab their swords, and they begin to try and kind of hack at Grendel to kill him, which shows their courage, their willingness to engage in battle. But Grendel's skin is bewitched, and all human-made blades cannot harm him. And yet his time had come. His days were over, his death near. Down to hell he would go, swept, groaning and helpless to the waiting hands of still worse fiends. Now he discovered, once the afflictor of men, tormentor of their days, what it meant to feud with Almighty God. Grendel saw that his strength was deserting him, his claws bound fast, Higlac's brave follower tearing at his hands. That's actually really interesting because not only does the narrator kind of describe Grendel's journey to hell, which is obviously a Christian belief, but he then compares Beowulf to God. He says, now Grendel knows what it's like to basically fight with Almighty God. This is a Christian typology or symbolism, okay? This would also go to your characteristics and conventions chart where it says that the epic heroes were seen to be kind of descendants of gods or related to gods. The monster's hatred rose higher, but his power had gone. He twisted in pain, and the bleeding sinews deep in his shoulder snapped, muscle and bone split and broke. The battle was over. Beowulf had been granted new glory. Grendel escaped, but wounded as he was, could flee to his den, his miserable hole at the bottom of the marsh, only to die, to wait for the end of all his days. And after that bloody combat, the Danes laughed with delight. He who had come to them from across the sea, bold and strong-minded, had driven affliction off, purged Herrick clean. He was happy now with that night's fierce work. The Danes had been served as he'd boasted he'd serve them. Beowulf, a prince of the Geats, had killed Grendel, ended the grief, the sorrow, the suffering forced on Hrothgar's helpless people by a bloodthirsty fiend. No Dane doubted the victory, for the proof hanging high from the rafters where Beowulf had hung it was the monster's arm, claw, and shoulder and all. So, Beowulf wins, and Grendel actually escapes by ripping his own arm off, or Beowulf is holding on to his arm, and Grendel flees and his arm detaches from him. So Grendel goes down to his lair, which is actually underneath the marsh, and he dies alone in his cave. A really long, agonizing death. Okay. The Danes rejoice as Beowulf has completed his mission. He has done what he said he wanted to do. But what we need to really think about is how society is now going to affect Beowulf. Yes, he completed his task. He did what he was supposed to do. But how will that added pressure or that need to kind of be successful and please other people affect him? Here's proof that I killed the monster. I'm going to hang his shoulder and his arm on the wall. Now, think about the fact that in this culture, they need proof, they need evidence. Will that shoulder and claw be enough? Will Beowulf be satisfied with what he has done? And then finally, in reflection, think about Beowulf's battle with Grendel as a comparison to the battle between good and evil. What is the narrator trying to say? Think about who was victorious. Think about what happened. What is the narrator's point in regards to good versus evil, or in regards to the power of Christianity or this new determined God?